So welcome back to the last section on the problems in Chapter 2 of the Python programming book. So in this one we're going to be doing questions number 13 and through 14 and 15. So 13 asks us to do pretty much the same thing that we did in question 12, but we're going to reverse it. So in this one, instead of having a loop that's going to be counting up, we're going to have a loop that counts down. And so I wrote the the code for this already, borrowing pretty much exactly from exercise number 12. But instead of counting upward from 0 to the height, we're going to count from the height, I'm sorry, from 1 to the height plus 1. We're going to count from the height down to 0. And our step is going to be -1. So when we do this, it should print out that triangle, but in the opposite order. So let me run this code. So in this case, let's enter 7 for the value. So this one actually starts with a total of 7 asterisks on the first row and drops down to 1 in the last row. So that's working. So let's move on to exercise number 14. So in this one, we're using for loops to print a diamond like the one below. Allow the user to specify how high the diamond should be. This one is a little bit tricky. So what we did in this one, I'm using 2 for loops. First we enter the height of the diamond. Now in the first for loop, we're iterating. There's a couple things that are going to be happening. One of the things that we have to do is that this particular diamond is a total of 7 high. And so we're going to be going, in the first row we're going to print 1 diamond, in the second row we're going to print 3, in the third row we're going to print 5, and so we're actually stepping up from 1 to 3 to 5 to 7, and then stepping downward by 2. So our iterator in this case is going to start off at 1 and go up to 7 by 2s, and then we're going to start off at 7. Actually, we're going to start off at 7 minus 2, which is 5, and drop down to 1. And so these 2 for loops do that. The second thing that we have to take into account is how many spaces are added to the front and to the end of the diamond, and we want to add those in. In the first case, the width of the diamond is the number of rows, which is 7, and from that we want to add some spaces on the front end of this diamond. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take that 7, subtract the 1 star we add here, and then divide by 2 to get the number of spaces we want on the front and on the back. And so what we do in this iterator is we take the variable spaces is going to be equal to the height minus I. So for each one we're stepping in on the first time through, we're going to start off at 1. So we're just going to subtract that 1 star on the first time through. So we'd have 7 minus 1, which is 6, divided by 2 is 3 spaces in the front. And so those 3 spaces are right here. We have the string with a space in it times the variable number of spaces. And then we print out the number of stars that we have, which is just our asterisk, with times the number I. The first time through it'll be equal to 1, the second time through it'll be equal to 3, and so on. And then we do the same thing again. We put 3 spaces on the tail, and and remember we have to specify our separator as equal to nothing. And then this on the way down the triangle, we do the opposite thing. We're starting off at height, and in this case, what we're doing is we're starting off at height minus 1. But then we also have to subtract. It depends on whether it's an odd number or an even number. So we're subtracting when it's an even number that's being printed in, we only subtract 1 from that. But when it's an odd number, we subtract an extra 1. So we would start off, if we put in 7 here, it would be 7 minus 1, and then 7 modulus 2 is 1. So 7 minus 2 would be 5 stars that we would have, and that would take into account this line here. The next time through, it would be, if you entered like an 8 in here, what it would end up doing is it would end up printing this line twice, so that you'd have the center of the diamond. Okay, and so we go through and we do the same thing here. So let's see how this works. If we press run, we then can see that, let's enter 7 for the first one, and it gives us our diamond of 7. And if we run it again and enter 8 in there, notice on this one it prints out the 7 there, but it repeats the 7 for the for an additional row there. If you enter 9 in, then we get an odd number again, and so there's a total of 9 here, and the diamond program seems to be working. Okay, the last exercise is exercise 15, which we're writing a program that prints a giant letter A like the one below. Allow the user to specify how large the letter should be. So in this one, we again have a situation where we have to put some spaces in the front. We're going to be, this one has only a single asterisk, but in this one we have 2 asterisks with a single space in between the two. In the third row we have 5 asterisks with no spaces in there, and so we're going to have to handle both of those situations. So I created a program to do that. Let's go back to PyCharm. So if we open up exercise 15, this is the program that does this. First we prompt for the height of the letter A, and now we're calculating, we're going to first print the peak of the A, and we calculate the number of spaces. In this case, the total length of this thing is going to be equal to the height of the thing, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high, but in the case where you have 5 high, there's a total of 10 characters across the bottom. There's 10 characters here as well, and so that's where this command comes in here, where we actually take the height times 2, and then we're subtracting 1 and then dividing by 2 in order to get the when we subtract the 1, that's for the star that's at the top of the pyramid. We take that total height there, subtract 1 from it, and then we divide by 2. So this is the formula that we do to get our spaces. And so then we start iterating through for the rest of these ones here, where we have a star followed by some spaces followed by another star. And in this one, we're actually iterating, we're calculating the number of spaces in the same way, but instead of just subtracting 1 from there, we're going to subtract the I value from there right here. And so based on where you are on the letter A, it will subtract off the appropriate number of spaces. And so that handles the spaces that are on either end. So here's the space on the front end, here's the number of spaces on the back end. But we also have to deal with the number of spaces that are in the middle. And there's one case where you're printing the crossbar where you don't want any spaces in the middle. You'd want all asterisks in the middle, a total of I number of those. And that's when when I is equal to the height value, or the height minus 1 if it's an even integer that's entered in. In the case where you don't want a crossbar, you're going to be having 2 stars and then I minus 2 spaces that are going to be in between the 2 stars, and then another star, and then you're going to have your empty spaces on the end. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. So let me run this, and so we're going to hit run, exercise 15. Let's first of all start with a height of 5. So this one appropriately handled that. Let's try it again with a height of, let's say, 10. Now in this case we have a total of 10 spaces, but the space bar actually comes in the 6th row. Okay, the bar across here actually comes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so it puts it slightly on the bottom side, and that's why you want to have the height, the I equal to the height, or I minus 1 is equal to the height, and that allows you to put the spacebar even if you entered a even integer into there. Okay, so that is question number 15, and that does it for all of the exercises in chapter 2.